First, you must achieve enlightenment. Only then will you know all of the Mansers. So here at Trip's Tech Journey, there is a saying that I've probably said multiple times on this channel, and that is that it doesn't matter what you have. What matters is making the most out of whatever you have. That's the key. In today's world with expensive GPUs that make up most of their performance with AI nonsense instead of actual real hardware performance, and parts that are overinflated and shortages and tariffs, gaming PCs, in order to break into the hobby, have gotten very, very expensive, even for entry-level machines. What I want to point out today is I want to set out to prove that it doesn't have to be. Not every part of a gaming PC has to be new. And I'm going to take that to its most logical conclusion. I, on the weekends, go volunteer at my local electronics shop on the weekends from time to time. And I help out and help fix and repair stuff and get it ready to sell. And sometimes I find stuff that I want to buy. Well, I was there this past weekend and I found a bunch of stuff that I was drawn to, and it got me to thinking that among all of this recycled trash, we can make something that works. And it really inspired me. So this video is going to be about, can I build a gaming PC entirely from parts that nobody else wanted? All of these parts that you're about to see came from the recycling center. These were about to be recycled and scrapped for gold and harvested for metals and scrap value and steel and aluminum, and it would have been thrown away essentially. I'm going to take everything that I bought and make a fully functional gaming PC from it. First and foremost, this is about sustainability. Reduce, reuse, recycle is in that order for a reason. And what this is going to be focused on is reusing parts. Let's go ahead and take stuff that people threw out that's still good, still functional, and let's repurpose it and make something that we can use. We're going to prevent stuff from going into a landfill, and we're going to give it a new lease on life as a gaming PC. But not only is this about sustainability. Sustainability is important, being environmentally conscious, keeping things out of the recycling center, keeping things out of the landfill, that is important. But it's also about budget gaming. I think that the price for PC gaming puts a lot of people off from getting into the hobby. But what I want to prove with this project is that when it comes to PC gaming, it's only as expensive as you make it. You can go get a new $5,000 PC with an RTX 5090 and whatever the high-end Intel or AMD CPU is, I don't know. And a bunch of RGB nonsense and stuff, and you can have your $5,000 gaming PC that can play everything at 4K at high frame rates. That's certainly an option. But for the rest of us that aren't sons of billionaires, we have to make do with what we have. Well, I think that we can do that on an extreme budget. So I picked up most of these parts. Some of them I got for free. Some of them I paid literal scrap costs for. And let's see how much gaming we can do. I feel like a lot of people are going to see something like this and they're going to think that it's kind of futile or kind of a waste of time. I ask you to approach this with an open mind because there are people in this world, maybe not even in the United States, but in other countries, this is their only option. It's going to be this or nothing. Some people who might not have a job yet, or they might have very limited funds that they can spend on a gaming PC, and this is all they're going to have. I want to make this accessible for them, and I want to show them, again, it's not about what you have, it's about making the most with what you have. So, be open-minded, and let me show you what I have cooked up here. So, let's start with our base platform. Here we have the Asus B85M-E Micro ATX motherboard. This is an LGA 1150 socket motherboard. I believe the BIOS I saw comes from I believe this is around 2013. So this would have been one of like the premier budget motherboards in 2013. This was released alongside Intel Haswell, so fourth gen Core i5, Core i7 is what this was. So this would have been like a pretty stacked like value motherboard at the time. If you did not want ATX or you couldn't afford it, this would have provided you pretty much all you need at a good budget price. So it's quite dusty. Gonna need to dust it off. Not a problem. Initially, I had tested this at the recycling center and I thought it was just dead. Turns out it's not in fact dead. It's just that the HDMI and display ports are broken. So you actually can't get video on this unless you use DVI or VGA. But since we're going to be using a graphics card, that doesn't matter. So it is mostly functional, which is what we need. It does have a CPU in it already, which I was using for testing. It's, I think, some kind of a Pentium. I can't see under the thermal paste, but that's not what we're going to be using. In terms of features, I mean, we got 4 RAM slots. That's more than I could ask for at this price point. 6 SATA slots for expandable storage. We got our 16X PCI Express slot right here, the yellow one. Got a 1X slot. Even have another, it's physically 16X at the bottom. On the back though, it looks to be 8. So, you know, yeah. And then just normal PCI slot. So, you know, interesting. I believe this motherboard had a BIOS update that allows you to even overclock. So if you're able to get an overclockable CPU for this, we could potentially even overclock it. We're not going to be using that feature, but it's just nice to know that the latest BIOS on this motherboard from 2013, I found on ASUS's website, is 2018. So they were supporting this all the way up to 2018, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that is going to be our motherboard. Oh, and obviously, you know, coming from the recycling center, it did not have an I/O shield, but your boy with his 3D printer printed an I/O shield. I just found it on Thingiverse, and it works pretty good, huh? Huh? How about that for Scrappy? Love that. So yeah, I got my own I/O shield. That's some personalization right there. So that is going to be our motherboard platform there. And then we have a few things to pair with it. Our CPU. We have right here, this is gonna really take me back. This is an i5 4570, 4 cores, 4 threads. This is actually quite similar to the first CPU I used in like my first gaming PC tower that I ever built back in high school. Now I used the i5 4590, which was basically a refresh of this. This is the 4570, I had the 4590, or excuse me, this is the 4570, I had the 4590, which is basically just, I believe it's just a bump in the clock speed, maybe a little bit more cache, I believe, but it was a mid-generation refresh for Haswell. But still, very competent CPU, not expecting any problems from this. This was basically the budget king when it came out. You know, this was that kind of mid-range i5 that everyone puts in their gaming PC. It's like the perfect CPU for a mid-range build. That's what this was. So very, very happy to be able to use this, because it's gonna take me right back to when I built my first system. And this was included with the motherboard. The motherboard I got for free because it was broken enough to where it wasn't worth reselling, because it doesn't even have the onboard features. So I got that, and then I got this thrown in. And then I also, since I had to clean it up, just got a basic Intel stock heatsink. So that's pretty cool. And then to pair with our CPU, I have 8 gigs of DDR3 from Nanya. I've never heard of that brand before, but at 8 gigs of DDR3, we will take it. For $10, I also got a 240 gig Kingston SSD. I also got, again, for I think $15. I also got our graphics card. This was pretty cool too. This is an unknown graphics card. We could not find out what this was. It didn't have any kind of code or anything. I tried Googling the serial number. There was nothing identifying on the entire GPU or PCB that tells me what this was. So for $15, I got it, and we'll see what happens with this. Now, I tried taking pictures and reverse searching on Google to see what this was. The closest I could find was it's either a GTX 570 or a GTX 660. One of those two. Also, that dates to around 2013, 2012, that time frame, so it kind of pairs perfectly with the CPU, actually. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Now, you might be thinking, why does this have no branding on it? And what Google tells me is that this GPU, it doesn't have any branding and has a very basic blower style cooler because this was likely part of a Dell or HP like office workstation tower of some kind. It was not like a gaming graphics card that was like sold to consumers. This was in like an OEM machine of some kind. So once we get an operating system going, I can boot this up and see what this is so that I can install the drivers on it. But that's interesting that I don't know what this GPU is. And I know that the fan spins when I powered it on, but I did not get any display out of it. But hopefully it works. I mean, we got HDMI, DisplayPort, and 2 DVI ports. So we'll see what happens. Most of this hardware is untested, like I said, so we're gonna be taking some chances on it. But I did see, like, with the CPU cooler and the GPU, the fans spun up. With the motherboard, it doesn't have onboard graphics, but I know that it does work and it does get into the BIOS if you add a graphics card. So that at least partially functions. So I mentioned I have the 240 gig SSD, but I also got, for another $10, some untested hard drives. Again, don't know if these work. I hope so, but we'll see. These are 2 Seagate Barracuda 500 gigabyte hard drives. So these will act as some more storage for our game library. Again, hope they work. Hope they work. And last but not least is going to be our case. Another $10 here. This is a pretty generic case. I could not find a brand name on it. However, you'll see in the back here, in the back and up top, there are 2 fans included, and both of those fans are Rosewill. So what that tells me is that this is some kind of Rosewill case. It is quite similar in appearance to my first computer case that I built my first PC in. So this is going to be a very nostalgic build for me, actually. The only difference is that my first case, power supply mounted up top, whereas this one mounted on the bottom. I actually prefer bottom mounted power supplies. It actually came with a DVD drive, which is pretty cool, and all the cables and 2 case fans. So that's really about it. Again, I just handed him $10. That's probably scrap cost for this thing. I almost forgot. You can't really have much of a gaming PC without a power supply. This is a Cooler Master 700 watt power supply. I don't know anything else about it. I don't know when it was made. I just know that it's 700 watts, and it looks like 660 of that is on the 12 volt rail. So theoretically, it shouldn't have a problem powering all of our components. Now, thankfully, I know, Cooler Master, not exactly one of the premier power supply manufacturers. I've heard good things about their power supplies. I've heard bad things about them. But, the way I see it is I'm not even going to come close to 700 watts with this thing. So I'm not too worried about overloading it, because I don't think that the components we're putting in here are going to be all that power hungry. So yeah, but that is going to be all of our parts total. I think it's about, I spent maybe $40 total. I'm forgetting the actual total number. I didn't really keep track, but about 40 bucks for the entire setup here. And again, that's really just recycling costs. So yeah, pretty good. Hopefully it all works, but that's what we paid. So I think all we can do now is start building it and see what we can come up with. And there you have it. She is built. We built an entire computer from parts that nobody else wanted from the scrap heap. That is pretty dang cool. This case is pretty tight. It's not the worst thing ever. It's not the worst thing to build in. The only thing that really made this experience not that great, the building experience, is the lack of a modular power supply. I just had to basically zip tie everything down here to keep it out of the way. And it's still not great. But you know what? Overall, not terrible. This is what I would expect from a budget case from this time period. It checks out. No room up top to route my 4-pin motherboard cable, so everything is just kind of, this is that era of, everything's kind of dangling and you just need to zip tie it off to the side. Not a lot of holes to route things through, but overall it wasn't bad. There's plenty of room on the other side of the back. There's a raceway that you can zip tie things to, so it wasn't the worst. So yeah, no real complaints. I even got my hard drives hooked up here, so let's plug it in and see if it turns on.
Eternity later.
All right, we got a post. So, a bit of an update. This motherboard is dead. Between bringing it home from the recycler and plugging it into the case, it died. I went back, and the guy was real nice. He let me swap it out with this one. So, even though this one is dead, we're still using a recycled motherboard. Now, instead of an i5 4570, this is going to be, you can see it on the screen here, this is going to be an i5 3470. So instead of Haswell, it's Ivy Bridge. That sucks, but hey, it is what it is. The reason why, with this thing, when that thing died, I could have scrapped the video right then and there. But I'm leaving this in and I'm still going forward with the project to show you guys that, when you're dealing with used components and used hardware, especially from a recycler, this is a reality. There are times where, you're gonna have stuff that breaks. And I don't want people to get discouraged because, you can always come back from that. But yeah, it's just a reality of working with used, and sometimes
recycled components that sometimes they're going to break or be broken. And this guy apparently was on his last legs. But we got a new one in there. We still got our 8 gigs of RAM, Core i5, even though it's 1 gen older. So I'm thinking we're pretty good. Let's get into the BIOS and see what we see. This is one of the things that I was worried about, but we're actually looking pretty good. What you will see is it's detecting all 3 of our drives. We have our Kingston 240 gig SSD and both of our 500 gig hard drives. So all of our storage is working, which is sweet. It looks like one of the hard drives has a Windows partition. We're gonna wipe that, I'm gonna start fresh. So everything else is looking pretty good. Very, very happy with that. And yeah, let's go ahead and all of the diagnostics in the BIOS are looking good. Looks like this thing is pretty good to go. So what I'm going to do is load up Linux on this and we'll get to playing some games. And there you have it. A gaming PC built entirely from recycled parts. This was a really cool project. I had a lot of fun doing this. Some of the games didn't have the best performance because I was using Linux. Technically, I guess I could have used, I suppose I could have used Windows 10 to squeeze the most performance, because especially with these older NVIDIA cards, Linux has some trouble. So the performance wasn't the best. Windows probably would have been better when you're dealing with an older NVIDIA card like this, because of Proton. It likes having like really good Vulkan support. Anyway, not the point. The point is, I was able to get some gaming done on this PC that has parts that all of them came from the recycling center. And I think that that's really cool. So this entire computer ended up costing $40, thereabouts. Between all of I basically just paid scrap costs. Maybe a little bit more than scrap costs, to be honest, but hey, $40. And the price of a new game is $60. So for less than the price of a new game, you have an entire PC that, I mean, this would have been a budget, like an awesome budget PC in 2013. And so I was still able to play, a good number of games on it. And you're not going to be playing the latest, AAA games, but you can still get some gaming done on this, if you're creative and if you're willing to tinker. So I'm really proud of it. I think it's a really cool statement on upcycling and, reusing stuff that people didn't want and turning it into something that's usable. So I think that this is I really enjoyed this project. And I'm kind of curious. I mean, this is going to be kind of a beta test computer for me for a while, I think. I'm probably not going to use this as a gaming PC, but it definitely is going to be a Linux box that will it'll serve some kind of purpose. I don't know what it is yet, but we'll see. So yeah, there we go. For those of you who are not aware, that graphics card, I did check it out in the Linux system viewer. It is a GTX 660 OEM edition. So yes, that 660 was in some sort of a Dell computer or HP computer, and it came out, and that's what it was. So it was never intended to be like a consumer card, but that's what it is. So there you go. But yeah, this was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't easy. There were some headaches. I had to replace an entire motherboard, but when you're dealing with recycled parts, that's the risk that you run into. So I'm glad that I was able to power through that. So let me know what you guys think. What do you think of this project? Is this something that you would do? Back when I was I would have, if I was in 8th grade when I got my first laptop, I would have killed for something like this. So yeah, let me know what you guys think down below. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.